Hello students, welcome to M10 classes. Hope you are enjoying the classes and today we are going to start with a new topic, that is your chapter 6 life processes. Now first of all, what are life processes? Life processes are those functions which together perform the maintenance job for sustaining life. So there are different life processes in our body, and it can be told as it is Mr. Rent, or some of them they say that it is Mrs. Nurg. What is this Mr. Rent and Mrs. Nurg? So in Mr. Rent, M stands for metabolism, R stands for respiration, R stands for reproduction, E stands for excretion, N stands for nutrition, and T stands for transportation. And some of the authors also say that it is Mrs. Nurk, that is M stands for movement, R stands for respiration, S stands for sensitivity, N stands for nutrition, E stands for excretion, R for reproduction, and G for growth. Though all of these are required for sustenance of life. So if you say somebody is live or not, you have to check whether their metabolic activities are going on or not, whether its respiration is going on or not, whether they are excreting or not, and all these functions are essential for sustaining life. In this chapter life process, you are basically going to read about respiration, excretion, nutrition, and transportation. So first of all, we are going to see about nutrition. So what is nutrition? Nutrition is the process by which an organism obtains food for its growth and other activities. So you might have read nutrition in previous classes, like in class 7th or 8th also. So basically nutrition is divided into two parts. One is autotrophic nutrition and another is heterotrophic nutrition. As you can see, it is here. Now, what is autotrophic? Auto means by itself, troph means nutrition. That means the organism that provides nutrition to itself is called the autotrophic nutrition. So autotrophic nutrition, green plants and some blue-green algae which have chlorophyll in their body, they synthesize their own food from inorganic materials, and that is called autotrophic nutrition. They prepare food for themselves, and that is why this is called autotrophic nutrition. Then comes heterotrophic nutrition. Hetero means you have to depend on others for nutrition. So it has three parts. One is holozoic, parasitic, and saprophytic. So what is holozoic nutrition? Holozoic, that means you have to engulf the food as a whole and you are going to digest it inside your body. Now basically holozoic nutrition has 5 steps, as you can see here. It is ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and excretion. So here we are going to read it in details when we will read about the nutrition in human beings. So what is ingestion? Ingestion means you have to ingest, you have to engulf. So you have to engulf the complex food within your body. Then comes digestion. Digestion means you are breaking down these complex molecules inside your body with the help of some enzymes, and that is nothing but your digestion. Then comes absorption. During digestion, the simpler substances or simpler compounds that are formed are should be absorbed in our body. Next comes assimilation. So the nutrients that you have absorbed into your body, they are used in making cells, in making tissues, in providing energy and the growth of other body parts. So that is called assimilation. And the last is excretion. So what is excretion? Excretion is nothing but the undigested food or the unwanted food which is there in your body, they have to be excreted out, and that is the process of excretion. Now next come to parasitic nutrition. So what is a parasite? Parasite is an organism which lives on other organism and extracts nutrition from it. So it depends upon the host for both food and shelter. I'm telling you, the students, you are the largest parasite in the world. I will ask why. Because if people are staying in your parents' home, you are getting food from them, you are dependent on them for both food and shelter, and that is why you all are parasites. Don't take it seriously, I'm just kidding. So what are parasites? Those organisms which depend upon others for food and shelter are called parasites. So you can find parasitic plants and also parasitic animals. Parasitic animals like your lice, which lives in the hairs, and tapeworm, sometimes it lives inside the intestine. Plants like Cuscuta, I'll show you the picture of Cuscuta. These are thin yellow color thread like structures which basically can be found over the trees. They just be on the trees and they extract nutrition from the plant and inhibits the growth of the plant. Next comes saprophytic. So what is a saprophyte? Saprophyte is a saprophytic animals or saprophytic organisms that depend upon dead and decaying matter. So what happens in case of hologic? You have to engulf the food and it gets into simpler form inside your body. But in saprophytic nutrition, it has already been converted into simpler forms by the process of decomposition, and the organism takes that dead and decaying matter. For examples, you have bread mold and mushroom. You might have found mushroom on trees, and sometimes the edible mushrooms which form over the straws. The straws are getting decayed, and on this decayed straw, your mushroom grows. So this is the example of fungi, which is a saprophytic organism. Next comes your internal energy reserves. Yes. Now, whenever you are absorbing the nutrients inside your body, it stores as energy reserves, which is used in the latter parts. So, in plants, those energy reserves are stored in terms of starch, and in animals, it is stored in the form of glycogen. These are important short questions. Now see, these are the examples. Now see, this is a mushroom which is growing over the decayed part of the tree, and this is bread mold, which is nothing but a fungi. So you might have seen when you keep a bread outside for 2 to 3 days, it get decayed, and on this you can find this brown color substances which are nothing but your bread mold. So these are formed on decaying substances. Now see, you can hear orchid, lice, and these are Cuscuta. See, the yellow color thread-like structures. So these all are parasitic organisms. Now let us come to photosynthesis. So all the in the autotrophic nutrition, all these organisms, they have chlorophyll within themselves, due to which they can carry out photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? It is a process in which the green plants, they absorb the raw materials like carbon dioxide and water, and in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight they form glucose, which is nothing but the food for the plant. And along with that, in this process you are getting oxygen. So let us get into the point. So first of all, what are the raw materials used? There is nothing but carbon dioxide and water. But what are the sources? These sources, from carbon dioxide you are getting it from air, and water you are getting from soil. So these are both are inorganic substances. So what are the essential requirements? Carbon dioxide, water as their raw materials, they are very much important. Chlorophyll and sunlight. In the absence of sunlight and chlorophyll, photosynthesis is not possible. These are the essential requirements. What is the main product? It is nothing but glucose, which is utilized in the growth of the body part and the formation of fruits. And what is byproduct? Oxygen is the byproduct. Why I have written it as byproduct? Because in this reaction, this product which is formed is not utilized by the plants and is given out to the atmosphere, and that is why I have written it as oxygen as byproduct. Now listen, in many reference books, you might be finding about like light reactions, dark reactions of photosynthesis, and these reactions will be helpful when you're going to read it in the higher classes, like in class 12th. So no need to worry about those. Whatever is there in your NCERT book, just follow it. These are very important. Now, what are the events occurring during photosynthesis? It might be it might come as a 3 mark question, and it is a very good question also. What are the three events of photosynthesis? First of all, absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. So chlorophyll will require some energy to carry out this reaction, and that is in the form of light. So sunlight is absorbed by chlorophyll. Second is conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, and this is very important. Now photolytic reduction of water. Photolytic, that means by the help of that is light, you are breaking down or splitting up this water molecule. Now this water molecule will give you hydrogen ion, electron and oxygen, and this hydrogen will be used in the third part. Now here you can see oxygen is produced. So during the splitting of water, the oxygen which is produced, which is given out to the atmosphere, and the hydrogen produced will be used in the third step, that is reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrate. So you might have read it in the first chapter of chemistry. What is reduction? It is nothing but addition of removal of oxygen or addition of hydrogen. So you can simply see that in CO2 it gradually converts into C6H12O6. That means hydrogen is added in this process, and that you may consider is that reduction of the carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. Now whatever we are going to discuss is very much important. This is activity 6.1, and it has already come in the board exams of the last year board exams. So chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. You have to describe by an activity, and it's already there in a book. Remember, every bit of your NCERT book is important. So go through it properly, read it properly, and make your own notes. So let us discuss what are the steps. You might get it as a long question of 5 mark, or in the practical based questions, some questions might be asked from it. Now let us see what happens here. So first of all, you have to take a potted plant with variegated leaves. In variegated leaves, you have different colors, like color patches of green and yellow, like it is shown here, and that you can find it in money plant. Next, discharge it by keeping it in dark room for 4 to 6 days. So what is discharging? Now suppose a plant has already been outside, so it has already produced starch by the process of photosynthesis. So before going to test for photosynthesis, you have to discharge it. That means if you are going to keep it inside a dark room for some days, then all the starch will be utilized, and as no photosynthesis is being carried out because of the absence of light, no new starch is formed. Next, take it out and keep it in sunlight for approximately 4 to 6 hours. So as you know, photosynthesis is a slow process, so keeping it for around 6 hours, some starch will be formed inside the leaves. Next, take a leaf and dip it in boiling water for some time to kill the cells. Now see, when you are going to dip it in the boiling water, the cells will die and the metabolic activities of the cells will be stopped. Next, immerse the leaf in a beaker containing alcohol and boil it in water bath to remove chlorophyll. Now this is important. You might get it as a short question, practical oriented question. What is the use of alcohol in the process of this activity in this practical? The alcohol is used to remove the chlorophyll, and remember, don't boil it directly over the flame. use the water bath as shown here in the picture. Okay, because boiling direct ethanol has low boiling point, it will boil very fast, so boil it in a water bath. So after boiling it in the water bath, chlorophyll will be removed. Now what you have to do, take it out and dip it in iodine solution. Why we are using iodine solution? You might be knowing that if we are going to put iodine solution on starch, it will turn it into blue black color. So when you are going to put it in iodine solution, the patches where chlorophyll were present, they would have starch in those areas, and those areas will turn into blue. Now you can see it in the figure. These parts where you had green patches, they had turned into blue black. So it shows that chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Now let us see another activity 6.2, that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. How to test it? We have to take two potted plants. Similarly, we have to destarch it by keeping it in a dark room for some days. Then take it out and put them, take two bell jars. You have to keep it inside the bell jars. And with one of the potted plants, you have to put KOH, that is potassium hydroxide. Okay, then you have to seal the bell jar from the bottom with Vaseline to make it airtight, so that no air will get into it. Okay, now what is the use of KOH? The KOH which is used here, it absorbs the carbon dioxide, so it will absorb all the carbon dioxide that is present inside that bell jar. Now keep it in sunlight. After keeping it in sunlight, you have to keep it in sunlight for 2 to 4 hours, and again take out two leaves from both the plants and test it for starch. You'll find that the plant which was kept with KOH will not show starch test. That means it will not turn into blue black because of the absence of carbon dioxide. In the absence of carbon dioxide, photosynthesis will not take place, and that is why you will not find starch taste or will not find blue black color in the leaf of this plant, which shows that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. Now you have a question from your NCERT, which element is necessary for making protein? The answer is nitrogen. But how do the plants get it? Now you might have read about nitrogen fixations earlier. So nitrogen is getting fixed into the soil in different ways, like the process of lightning, and some of the animals or plant waste which get decomposed in the soil. And nitrogen is produced from these nitrogenous substances, and some like your some rhizobium bacteria, some bacteria which fix nitrogen into the soil. In different processes, the plants get nitrogen, and this nitrogen is essential for making of protein. Now coming to the end of the session, we have to discuss some of the questions. So first of all, you might, if you have already read this chapter, you may be astonished that some of the questions are also there. Such questions are also there in your book. First one, what are the functions of stomata and where are they present? So it's a very simple question. Stomata. Stomata has two basic functions. First of all, transpiration, and second is exchange of gases. Okay, now what are these two processes? So during photosynthesis, I have told you oxygen is produced. This oxygen is given out to the atmosphere by the help of the stomata. And again, the plants require carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. They absorb it from the atmosphere by the help of the stomata. Second is transpiration. What is transpiration? That evaporation of water from the leaf surface. So it is taking place from the stomata itself. When the stomatal pore will open, the transpiration rate will be more, and when the stomatal pore will be closed, the rate of transpiration will be less. Where are they present? So first answer is it can be present in all the parts of the plants. So basically you find it in the leaves, And leaf has two epidermis, the upper epidermis and lower epidermis, but the number of stomata present in the lower epidermis is much more than it is present in the upper epidermis. Next question. There is a controversy whether viruses are truly alive or not. Okay, so why is it so? So, in the recent times, you might be knowing about coronavirus, and in class ninth also, you have read that it is very difficult to produce vaccines for viruses. Why is it so? Because viruses do not have their metabolic activities of their own, metabolic pathways, and they depend upon the host. So whenever they enter into the host, they show some actions, show some infections, show their metabolic activities, and that is why uh, there is a controversy whether they are truly alive or not, because when they are outside they do not show any activity. They show active their activities only when they get into the host. So there is a controversy whether they are truly alive or not. Next, why do different organisms have different nutritional processes? Now, a question that has to be that you might be thinking, that you have already read that, like in case of cattle, like your cow, their long intestine is their intestine is much more longer than humans, and in case of tiger, the intestine is a little small or shorter. Why is it so? Because it depends upon the kind of food that they eat. So the answer is the nutritional processes depends upon the complexity of the carbon molecules. Because the animals like cow, they eat mostly the leaves, and they have this complex carbon molecules present in it, and that takes a lot of time to get digested. So the answer will be the nutritional process of different animals depends upon the complexity of the carbon molecules. Next, do unicellular organisms perform all the life processes like multicellular organisms? Like we are multicellular organisms, we have all the kinds of life processes, the respiration, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition, all this. Now, whether unicellular organisms, a single cell, a tiny single cell, will they be able to perform all the life processes? And the answer is yes. You take amoeba, it is respiring through its cell membrane. It can engulf food, it can digest food, so it has nutrition. It can excrete the waste materials. So whatever life processes is maintained within the multicellular organisms, the same can also be maintained within a unicellular organisms. Next, the last question, why is diffusion insufficient to meet oxygen requirement of multicellular organisms like humans? So it is a in-text question of your book. First of all, diffusion is a very slow process. Now, your cell, it can diffuse oxygen from outside, but nothing about your body. The number of cells that is in contact with the atmosphere is much less than the number of cells inside your body. So whatever amount of oxygen will be diffused into the cell, and if we are going to diffuse it to other cells, it will take a lot of time. And as you know, in multicellular organisms, the oxygen requirement for the cell is more because of their activities. And the simple diffusion process is not sufficient to meet the oxygen requirement of all the cells of your body. Then what will be the solution for it? The solution is transportation. Like you have blood is getting transported inside your body, it carries oxygen to different parts of the body. We are going to read it in details in the later classes. Students, this is an advice to go through each beat of your NCERT book to get all the answers from your book. It is very much vital for you. And I request you to watch this video on Chrome browser or on your PC or on your desktop to get better experience. thanking you. I am going to continue this chapter till the end. I am going to upload videos daily. So be updated, keep updated, watch videos, like and share and comment also. Thank you.